So the title of this chapter of your textbook is Thinking Critically with Psychological Science. So in the first couple modules, we're going to talk a little bit about ways of knowing, ways of thinking about the world, and then some specifics about what psychology can do to try to help us better understand that. Really, this idea of critical thinking is something that gets bandied around a lot at all levels. You start talking about teaching people critical thinking skills in elementary school. It's propagated throughout all of our education. We talk about it all the time at the college level. But really, critical thinking is essentially a way of gaining knowledge that is accurate and that you can count on. But that's really loaded, right? I mean, how do we know what's right? What's true? We can even go very philosophical and ask the question of what is true at a fundamental sense. Like, what is the property of being true? What is the property of being right? Is it just an illusion? These are complicated and interesting questions perhaps to ponder, but can really lead us down paths of dead end. The issue is that knowing things, understanding things, formulating our story of the world around us, right? Thinking back to what we talked about in the intro module, that we are all about constructing a coherent story about our world, right? Our knowledge base, our understanding of the world, our model of the world, we need it to be a coherent story. And that's part of our fundamental psychology, is that need for that story to make sense and to be consistent, right? But how do we construct that story? We construct it out of a lot of different ways of thinking about and knowing about the world. This is not meant to be exhaustive, but you might think of various spheres of knowledge, right? We can think about the world through a philosophical window. This gets back to that brief little detour we took when I asked, what does it mean for something to be true, right? That's a question of philosophy, right? How do we know that we know things, right? These are issues that we can philosophize about, we can analyze, we can critically think about, but they're going to be different kinds of questions, and the answers we create are going to be different than, say, if we talk about things that are artistic, right? What is beauty? What is art? Right? How can it be replicated? Where can we find it? What does it mean for it to exist? Right? Is it universal? Is it specific to us? Right? Art is an expression of aesthetic. Religion can answer fundamental questions about the nature of reality and the purpose and meaning of our existence. Also in the sphere of trying to answer these fundamental questions is this idea of science and the application of the scientific method. Science can answer a whole lot of questions. The scientific method can provide us a very coherent thought process and methodology for getting clear, potentially universal answers. But science cannot answer all questions, right? Religion, art, philosophy can all ask questions that science can't address. For this class, we're going to really focus in on this sphere here of science. What can science tell us about the way we think, about the way we act? Sometimes those questions are going to overlap questions that art might bring up, right? They might overlap with philosophy, and they might skirt the edges of religion. Sometimes they may fully overlap as well. But for the most part, right, science kind of addresses its own domain with overlap with the others. Right? So we are going to be talking about using the scientific method as a primary tool of critical thought. Right? How can we use the scientific method to reason and understand the world? Well, we all kind of intuitively do this, I think. I think we can see how it can be applied and what some of the properties are. To get us kind of in the feel for that, I've got an advertisement I want you guys to watch. This is an advertisement of a product that claims to bring a psychological advantage to people. So let's take a look at it now.
I did it to be quicker.
Just to stay sharp.
To remember people's names. To concentrate a little better.
learn faster.
Just not miss stuff.
And, to get it from in here to out there.
No matter why you want a better brain, Lumosity.com can help. It's like a personal trainer for your brain, improving your performance with the science of neuroplasticity, but in a way that just feels like games. Start training with Lumosity.com right now and discover what your brain can do.
So Lumosity makes a lot of big claims. Is there any way we can figure out if it would be worth purchasing it? How can we determine whether or not the claims it makes are real? As we wrap up this first video of the module, before moving on to the second video, I want you to stop and I want you to think about answering these questions, right? So don't jump into the next video without having sat down and maybe even make some notes about how you would go about trying to determine whether or not Lumosity works, whether or not it would be a product that people should buy. And think about the process, the method, the steps you would take to try to determine whether or not this product